Hey, happy Wednesday. Thank you for those of you who are hopping on and joining. I know some of you guys are still coming in and out. I'm really excited about today's conversation. I have a very dear friend slash mentor slash spiritual mom slash all of the above here to share her experience with me. Full disclosure, I kind of sprung this on her. She had zero idea that she was going to be doing this live. So hats off to her for, for being willing to do this and for trying something new and for being brave. So, yeah, just really quick, a few housekeeping rules. If you're on here, please get the likes up, tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. We're going to be talking about a couple of things: how to be a wife, getting wisdom from someone who's been doing that for decades, and just a few questions that deal with divesting and things of that nature. So I'm excited to get her perspective. I'm excited to just hear her story. And just in the interest of time, if you guys have any questions or any things that you want answered, please send in your super chat. I'm only going to be answering those questions that come through on super chat. So yeah, without further ado. And lastly, like I said, share this with anybody who you think may find this interesting, especially women, young women who are interested in wanting to be moms, wanting to be wives, wanting to just figure out how to, what that entails, what that looks like, what does this mean on a day-to-day basis. Share that with those women, as I think this will be really useful. And then if you guys don't know, I have channel membership up and running. So if you guys want to become monthly supporters and also get more exclusive content, more behind the scenes content, more never before seen content, you can support me on channel membership. So check out my channel membership page where you will find more details. And yeah, I'm excited. So without further ado, let me pull this up. You hear the dog? That's okay. The dog agrees. So did you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself? Just who you are, and really anything you want the audience to know.
Okay, well, I'm Vickie Conde. I've been married for 40 years. I'm a Christian, Holy Spirit-filled Christian, which is very wonderful for me because it's what led me into being able to have a marriage that works.
Okay, awesome. So you would say your relationship with God is one thing, is key to you having a successful marriage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because, men, they have needs and I have needs. And when you first come together, you don't even know what each other's needs are. You really don't. And so you do what you think you should do, but not necessarily what really needs to be done for one another.
Okay. Interesting.
So I should say I have 4 children. I have 7 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
And they all live within a 15-minute radius of our home. And I'm very blessed, very, very blessed. I love my kids so much.
Yeah.
So everybody does, but I really do too.
No, absolutely. And they look like you too.
They do.
I think the youngest one especially looks like you. As a side note. All right. So what's okay, let me see. Okay, what's the easiest and hardest thing about being a wife for, you said 40 years, right? You've been married for like 40 years?
40 years.
Yeah. So what would you say is the easiest and the hardest thing about being a wife for 40 years?
Wow. The hardest thing is dealing when someone is really struggling and you don't know what to do. And you try to help, but it doesn't work because your mate needs God as much as you do. So to not try to win them over with words or, I'm doing this, I'm serving God, and so it should work. That doesn't work. But by keeping yourself filled with the word and by prayer, it's the only way to get through that kind of stuff. A long time ago, I did a triangle, and it would be God on top and then husband and wife. And I used to go to my husband for my needs, but he didn't always have what I needed. So through many years of trial and error, I learned to go to God first. He would then give the needs to Dan, and then I would get blessed that way. And it would work either way. And that way, you're not just going to your husband for what really only God can give you. That was the hardest. Now the easiest. Those are the joy-filled times. Those are when things are working, when you feel heard. When you're worshiping, we did praise music together for over 20 years. And that was so special to be in the same ministry. I think it really carried us a long way. I think vacations are essential, especially with kids, and that you don't take the kids. Don't take the kids. And that way you can kind of keep your relationship more fresh and get a restart like once a year. Oh, yeah, I need a drink.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so you would say that one of the easiest things for you was, that makes sense, just having fun together, finding common interests, doing music, vacation. You guys both like to travel, so that's something that you would say was like a fun aspect, easy aspect. And then the hardest being recognizing that no man has the capacity to fully satisfy you, and that you have to get that from God.
Absolutely.
And as soon as you recognize, hey, it's not my husband's responsibility to make me happy, it's my responsibility to get that with myself and my relationship with God, that's when that was a hard lesson, but also a very, very fulfilling lesson.
Yeah. I think a lot of times girls look so forward to the bride. Oh, we're going to get married. It's so wonderful. And then they find out that they need God more than ever. Because now it's not just you, but now it's you and your husband. And you need to be responsible for your side of praying for them. And I think it's essential. But, when Dan and I met, we were not Christians. We were way out in that far country. And we both came from highly dysfunctional families. So it took a lot of years and a lot of counseling for me in particular to deal with those things in my past that had yet to be healed. And then as I did that and I got healthier, and then God worked with him and he got healthier. And so then we actually became one in a brand new way. I'm going to pull off my ring. I don't think they can see it, but I'll explain it. So I don't even know what the camera is.
Right over there.
So this ring here, I got on my 25th wedding anniversary, and it has a diamond on the top and a diamond on each side. And he gave it to me saying, this time our marriage has God at the top. And he has his arm around you and his arm around me. And it really began to take on a different form of marriage, a really different a way of communicating and understanding one another.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. So once him and you individually focused really on building a strong relationship with yourself and with God, that's when things took off. And
started doing things like a cleansing stream where you both go in and you're working on your issues and you're reading the same books and you're listening to the same teachings, and that I think was like the best. I love that so much, to have him really stand up as leader and pray over the family, and it was just really cool.
Okay.
Got so much more respect for him. I could see his wisdom. It was really awesome.
That's awesome. For those of you who have hopped on, please get the likes up, tag anybody on this conversation who you think may find it interesting. We're just talking about how to be a wife. What does it look like? What does it mean? And I'm here with a dear friend who was just sharing her experience of being married for over 40 years and the different things that she has learned. So on to the next question. Did your upbringing prepare you to be a wife and mother, or did you have to learn on the go?
I really had to learn.
Okay.
I definitely had to learn. My mom's way of doing things was right for her. But I remember speaking once about how I was trying to make myself like my mother. I was making an idol of being clean, like the house had to be perfect. I have 4 kids. And I finally realized I was trying to make myself an idol in my own home. And I began to see that the truth is that's that word that says holiness is next to cleanliness, or cleanliness is next to holiness.
Godliness.
That's godliness. It's not true, ladies. It's not true. It's good to have a clean home, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is loving on your kids and your husband. And there's a lot of sacrificial things you do, but it's worth it. Everything is so worth it. It's amazing now. I can see my daughters, or 3 of them are a girl and 1's a boy, and they have their children and they mother so well. And I'm just so amazed at them. And, you know, it's like I saw them mature and go beyond me. And I mean, I had to come up quite a ways, but they have just gone right way up above me now. And so I learned from them too. That's really awesome. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so this is a somewhat of a interesting or controversial question, but I want to get your insight on it. So there is a popular belief that white men make better fathers, husbands, and always treat their woman well. That's a popular.
Who believes that?
Let me finish the question.
That's a lie.
Let me finish the question. Right. So that's a popular belief. So was your life easy and stress-free because you married a white man?
I'm sorry.
I'm actually that serious.
You are serious.
That is a.
Okay. No, it's not true. Not anywhere. Every man is individual. Every man has their own walk, and certainly a white man can hurt their family as bad as a black man. There is no truth in that. Abuse goes across the boards, across cultures and everything. What I do see, I see men who minister to other people. I see my daughter's married to a pastor, and I see her, she has so much respect for him because he's such a godly man. And, you know, he's not black or white. You know, he's a man of God, and that I forget where I'm going with this.
Yeah, but no, I hear you. It was probably like, this sounds so ridiculous. I don't know how to respond. But
yeah,
you know, I've always believed that you're going to find good and evil in anywhere, because men and women of all races and ethnicities have the capacity for good and evil. Some people just don't believe that. And so, like I said, you know, instead of me sitting here and trying to explain it, I figured, okay, why not actually talk to somebody who's lived through the experience and see, well, was your life perfect or was it not perfect?
No, we had a lot of abuse. I came from an alcoholic home, and there was tons of violence. And so I didn't even like men who treated me nicely.
You were attracted to men who treated you bad.
I liked the bad boys. And if they weren't some bad, I thought they were boring.
I think, honestly, a lot of women feel that way. I think a lot of women, especially if they grow up broken, maybe they don't have dads, or the men in their life or the woman in their life, you know, they just get used to abuse. Yeah. It's attractive to them, even if it's toxic.
It's comfortable because the boundaries are somewhat the same as it is in your family of origin. And then you come into marriage and you find someone like your family, so you think you're safe. Now we know what these boundaries are, but it's a big lie.
So you're saying it feels good because it's familiar,
Yes.
even if it's toxic.
Perfect. It's a familiar spirit.
Right.
It is a spiritual matter.
That's really interesting. Okay, so then with that, would you encourage Black women to seek out white men as husbands so they can avoid pain, hardship, and have good marriages?
Absolutely not. I'm sorry, I don't mean to smile at it. It's just so preposterous that I don't even know how to address it. I don't. It's just, I've learned so much about domestic violence, and it goes across finances. It doesn't matter if I've seen some very, very poor people with the most beautiful marriages. And
then you see rich people who are, I remember when I worked in $1 million, I was working in Ruby Hill. I was working there, $1 million, golf course club. And some of the awkwardness I saw between those couples, men who did not want to go, who literally spent their entire time at the bar getting drunk because they didn't want to go home to their wives. They didn't want to go home to their kids. And I'm like, you have all the money in the world. You should be happy. But they weren't.
It's not true. It's almost like you have the money that can afford you to go on another vacation or go out and buy something, but that's not going to make your marriage any better. You're trying to stuff it with the wrong things. And it's actually very sad.
Yeah.
When you see it, when you see someone doing that, you have to pray for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I talk a lot about prayer, but her and I really had a lot of special things going with our prayer life for 10 years.
Gosh, I've lost track. At least
you're 19, right? When you came here,
I'm 19. Not anymore. No. When I started the church, I was 17, but I think I didn't officially join until I was 18. So I met you probably within the first year. So we're going back. I actually met her years ago at a church at the time that her and I both attended. So since then we've stayed. We're no longer there, but we've stayed connected. So
yeah, we're very connected spiritually. I have always been. She writes, I write, so that carried us through quite a bit.
No, definitely.
Here, read this. Okay, I'll read that.
So, what advice would you give younger women in general who desire to be wives, mothers, or stay-at-home moms?
Wives, mothers, or stay-at-home moms.
Yeah, what advice would you have?
Of course, you're going to seek God first for what He's calling you to do. I'll speak from experience. I got the Lord gave me the scripture with Mary and Martha, and it says that Mary chose what was good, and Mary was the one who sat at His feet. In my spirit, I knew I was not meant to go back to work, and that I would be very much a seeker of the Word and wanting to impart that to my children. And so if you have a calling, you go and do that calling. God will put it on your heart. You need to listen, seek Him, and you'll know whether you're supposed to work outside the home or raise your own kids. It's not easy to raise your own kids.
So would you say that raising your own kids or being a stay-at-home mom, would you say that was like a full-time job?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I had 4 kids.
4 kids, right.
Do laundry for 6 people for a month or cook 3 meals a day for 6 people. Everybody does it different. A lot of women homeschool now. And I had no desire to do that.
To homeschool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that in and of itself is another job. Being able to homeschool.
That's true. And I didn't really quit.
Yeah. Totally. So that makes sense. So you would say you have to know individually what's best for you and your family.
Yeah.
And if, the doors are open for you to be a stay-at-home mom, for you to do that, you have to know that that's still hard work. It's not going to be you're sitting around every other day getting mani and petties and living luxuriously.
No, it's not. No, it's not anything like that. It's absolutely anything like that. If anything, you're a laborer.
You're a laborer always.
Yes, you are, all day, middle of the nights. It's the real commitment. Your husband's easy compared to a newborn baby. It's wonderful. It's beautiful, but you're exhausted, and then they grow older, and then you have another one, and they fight. There's that kind of stuff. But I have a little story.
Yeah. When
I was a little girl, I was going to church. I went to church by myself because of this dysfunction in my family.
Right. I'm getting some drinks too.
And I would go to church every week by myself, and I would pray, and I would have this prayer. Please, God, help my daddy stop drinking. Help me have a big family that doesn't drink, smoke, or swear, and that they would serve God. And help me stop biting my nails. Every week I prayed that prayer. And it was really great. And then I got pregnant with my 4th child. It was like, I didn't mean that big. But
so you're saying you prayed it as a young girl, and then you felt like you look back and you're like, man, I really prayed that. And you had 4 kids. Yeah, 4
and
kids.
He brought it to me. I was pregnant, walking down the street. My 3 kids were in front of me. My husband was next to me, and I realized, oh, God answered that prayer. And I'm, of course, so blessed.
Right, and you stopped biting your nails too.
No.
Okay.
I don't really bite them. They just kind of
right.
paint stuff on.
That's funny. Funny. Well, for those of you who hopped on, thank you. I see the super chat. We bring this up. I see, ladies, we need respect. This is a man. Loyalty and cooperation first. Other things like love, we men figure out how to learn and earn. But those 3 things we demand and need. So yeah, you're saying men need respect, loyalty, and cooperation. Would you agree with that? Would
Absolutely.
You say, okay.
Yeah, love. Men do need to be respected.
Right.
And in the word, when it talks to husband and wives, it tells the husband first love his wife, and in turn, she will respect you.
Right.
And when I was taught that, I was like, that makes so much sense. Because if you feel loved, you want to lift somebody else up. And support them all you can, and you want their wisdom. You don't want to just fall on yourself or depend on yourself. But like, what is it that you feel is best for us? Yeah, absolutely true. Very
absolutely,
good. Yeah.
Absolutely. I see. Shay, can you do a video? Oh, please, a video reaction of Shahara Ali's interview with the feminist interviewer. Okay, I will check that out. And I see another super chat. Said, I was raised by my father to be wise so I can provide, be strong so I can protect, and to know God, both within and outside myself so I can lead. But I think some girls see this as lame, like I'm a sucker. I will say, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, where I do believe that unfortunately, there's many women who are attracted to toxicity or attracted to whether it's the bad boys, the violence. And I think oftentimes that speaks more to their brokenness. That speaks more to their own issues. Because I think a good woman is going to be attracted to a good man who actually has right priorities. So, I think oftentimes I know men who have talked about struggling with that, men who they are really trying to work hard. They are trying to build their relationship with God, and they're finding it that in some ways that works against them because women that they like are going for the bad boys. They're going for the boys with the edge. They're going for the boys that may beat them up a little bit,
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I think that what that means, if a girl is choosing that, if that's the route that she's going to take, it's not going to be easy peasy. She's going to have to go through some things, And so if you're a healthy guy, then if a woman doesn't like you because you're healthy, that's, I'm thinking that's her loss. There's women out there who are really trying to do good and they want a good guy, you know?
They want to be in that place that when they meet that man, they are prepared. They've got oil in their lamps and they are ready.
They're ready.
They're ready and been waiting, and it's time. And, I remember a month before I met my husband, I was driving down the road and the Holy Spirit said to me, you're going to meet your husband. You're going to marry this man. Out of the blue, clear blue sky.
This is before you met him?
A month before I met him.
A month before you met him, God told you that you were going to meet your husband. Yeah.
And a year later, I was married to him. I met him within a month and a half.
And would you say he was your type?
My dysfunctional.
Your dysfunctional type. Okay.
We fit perfectly. But God used that, and we both came to Christ. He came to Christ 3 weeks before I did.
Okay.
He came home from a men's retreat and told me, "You're not a Christian." And I went, "I don't even know what that means."
What that means? Yeah.
I really didn't understand.
Right.
And within 3 weeks, God got a hold of me. I was so thrilled to have my sin removed from me. I felt like I was walking on air for 3 years. It was like amazing.
Right.
So we both had that experience at the same time.
So that, I mean, for you, going back to what you said earlier, that really has been the centerpiece of your marriage, is your individual relationship with God. Without that, you would say that it would be bad.
It wouldn't be here.
It wouldn't be here.
It wouldn't be
here. Okay.
Because we all want to get connected with other people. But you first, for me, I have to be connected with myself too. That I remember thinking, if I got yelled at or something, I'm just shut down. You know, I just go nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's not what God had in mind for me. I had a friend say, get your emotions in line. I was like, I don't know where they are yet.
Yeah.
Because I had been so traumatized and hurt earlier on. And then as I got healthier and got more relationship with the Holy Spirit, and then it was so much fun because you can learn to listen to him, and he will tell you to do things that you never imagined you would do.
Right.
And with that, I got some gifts from the Lord. And as I operated in them, I started painting. And my husband actually built me a painting studio. And I began to paint. And he had so much respect for that. And he was a drummer, had a recording studio. So we have our recording studio, and we have our painting studio. And we have a lot of respect for one another when that's going on.
But you would say that took time to get there.
Yeah.
It took time to get to the point where you were respecting. And, you know, I mean, I'm thinking back to what you said earlier, where you're like, all those years of being a stay-at-home mom wasn't easy peasy. Because let me just tell you another common talking point right now is there are young women who are being encouraged to seek out men who are high earners, or seek out men who make a lot of money, which most women, I think, on a base level want to be taken care of. But they think that, oh, if I marry a rich guy, then that means I'm going to be taken care of. I'm not really going to have to work or struggle.
You know that.
I'm looking at your facial expression.
I'm trying to be. It's not true.
You're just like, this is.
No, you don't want your daddy taking care of you. You want a mate. You want a lover. You don't want someone, okay, honey, let me make your dinner for you. No. And it's not real. It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy.
It is a fantasy. Because you have jobs when you're at home that are, you know, separate from just taking care of each other's stuff, but you have outside interests and relationships. And
so even women who aren't working maybe in corporate or working outside in a field, they're still working at home.
They are.
They are still working at home.
I had ministry practically from the moment I received Christ. Full-time ministry. I was full-time and raising the kids. But it brought me joy. And there was always a lot of people around. And, you know, it was a very joyful life, you know. Right. But I got to be with people that were really similar minded. And some of them worked and some of them didn't work. Didn't really make any difference.
Now, would you say submission is important?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But submission is important, but not surrender. I think there's a difference.
Yeah, get something to drink. For those of you who are on, please get the likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. I'm just having a conversation with a dear friend. She's just sharing her experience with being married for 40 years, raising, what did you say? You have 4 kids and 7 grandkids. Right. Yeah, she was a stay-at-home mom. And so I just wanted to talk to somebody who was actually in the game. Many of you guys know there's a whole lot of popular ideas out there about what things are and how things should be. And what I've seen is that a lot of these ideas are coming from people who actually haven't lived it. People who haven't been married, people who don't know what stay-at-home moms are like, people who don't talk to people outside of the race. Like, it's just coming from all these ideas that aren't actually tested. So, you know, part of me wanted to sit down and talk to someone who's just lived, who's gone through these different things, who's had experiences, and has some open and honest truth to share. So again, if you know of any women who who want to be moms, want to be wives, are interested in being a stay-at-home moms, and interested just in general on how to have healthy relationships, share this video, tag this with anybody who you think may find it interesting. Also, in the interest of time, I'm only answering any questions that are coming through on super chats, and I want to thank you, Raw. I don't know how to say her last name. I don't want to butcher it, but thank you for your super chats. And thank you for those of you who have hopped on. So I know now, just to circle back, I'd asked you if you would say that submission is important in your relationship.
Yes. Again, yes, it's absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But first you submit to the Lord,
right?
Then you submit to your husband.
Okay.
But it's like that scripture, brothers, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I could take that scripture and say that God does not want a dead sacrifice on an altar. So if you're just doing things because your husband's telling you to do them, but you know you're not doing something right, there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I surrender to God and I submit to my husband, but I don't get that reversed, because I can find myself in a lot of unhappiness if I get that out of alignment. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
To you?
So you're saying part of being a godly woman, or part of being a woman who was God-fearing, is submitting to your husband in the context of a marriage. Like you can't be a married woman, say you love God, but then not submit to your husband.
Right. And using wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
The scripture in Peter 3:1, it talks about wives submit to your husbands, but it says this little line at the end of the paragraph, and it says, be like Sarah and do not give in to fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has got to be one of the most profound lines in the Bible about wives, because when your husband goes into fear, or he has anxiety over work or finances or whatever, if you can keep yourself with your faith strong, and knowing God is bigger than that problem, when your husband turns to you, maybe it'll be words, but maybe it's not. But your inner posture, knowing God is greater, they can lean on that.
Right.
And I don't try to fix somebody with words. It's not going to change his behavior. But when there's trust and hope and faith in God, he can move mountains. He provides. He's perfect at doing that. So I don't have to be afraid.
Right.
And I think when you get into fear, you have a tendency to start going into motion and to avoid emotions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we can really mess things up.
No, I hear you on doing things in fear, and sometimes you don't even really know that you do it.
Right.
But anytime you're moving and operating in fear, and sometimes your husband can sense that.
Yeah.
The person who you're closest to you, they can sense that. And even if it seems like you're doing something right, but like your motive behind it is off, then it's just the whole thing is off.
You
like
lose your peace.
The whole thing is off.
Where did my peace go?
Right. Yeah. No, totally. So now would you say, because you mentioned this idea of really moving sometimes in silence.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that there are times when women can talk too much, or that can be our tendency to talk too much, where we should be more silent, or we should be modeling through our actions?
Definitely. I think a lot of times men don't share with other people. They come home to their wives and they can start talking, and then the wife's trying to fix him, and he really just needs to be heard and validated at times. Yeah, I can understand. And not from a point of, I know more than you, but sincerely trying to hear what he's saying. And then if it seems appropriate, can I pray for you? Right there in the moment. And he might reject it, but you can pray by yourself. But only God can change the mind of a man. So you have to sometimes wait and be silent and let things come to a head. And it does. And then you get a fresh start and you've learned something.
Yeah. Waiting and being silent. I remember when I think, the interview we had a few months ago, and she actually mentioned something similar, where she was like, how women, their talking and their chatting sometimes can be the very thing that gets in their way.
Yeah.
And we love to talk. I love to get together with my girlfriends and talk and chat and work things out. But yeah, I think sometimes knowing when to shut that down is one of the hardest lessons to learn.
That's the beginning of the scriptures. Women, be quiet, for your husband will not be won over by your words. You're not going to change his behavior by your words.
By your words.
And so, I don't know. It hasn't worked for me to try to fix him. I'll offer my opinion. Sometimes he'll ask for it and I'll give it, but sometimes I just need to just be a listener.
Right. No, absolutely. Thank you. I see a super chat coming through. It says, I want to thank you for clearing things up about submission. There are females, not women, who think that submission means to be voiceless slaves, which is nowhere near the case.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it sounds like, it sounds like submission is what has in very, very many ways allowed your marriage to prosper. You really doing things the way that they're meant to be done. It sounds like it's allowed things to flourish the way they were. So things weren't out of order.
Yeah. And that took a long time. I mean, the first 25 years was really hard.
The first 25 years. Hey, you know what? I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. Well, we both needed to deal with issues, but I think the other part of it was, I was really afraid to love somebody and didn't really know how. I didn't know how to love a man. I didn't see that when I was growing up because of the severe trauma and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. My parents didn't have a relationship that was loving that I ever witnessed. So I thought, the wife would just do all the work. But forgot about the love part of it. I had to learn that and bask in it. Because once I figured it out, I was like, whoa, this is great. This was totally new. And it made me feel creative and free. And I was in the right place where I needed to be.
Right.
And to see my 4 kids all happily married. And one of them has been married for 18 years now.
Dang, I had no idea. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So they all have successful marriages.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's really unusual in today's.
It's incredibly unusual. This is, like I said, partially why I wanted to have this conversation, because so many people nowadays are just guessing. And most people didn't grow up in, if they did grow up in a family, there was dysfunction at best.
Right.
And then most people just didn't. They didn't see a man and a woman working together. They didn't see families. And so, many people are just guessing. They're just trying to figure it out the best they can. And then you add that with just a lot of the toxic culture that is being promoted. Everything from, I shared with you earlier, the hypergamy level up, which is women saying, oh, well, just marry a rich man and your life will be okay, to divesting, which is saying, oh, just marry a white man and then your life will be perfect and stress-free, to just, all the stuff. You're just like, this is not true.
So bizarre that somebody would think that. I just don't know of any nationality that you could marry that would take care of you and be a perfect husband.
Yeah.
None. No.
You're like, it doesn't exist.
And just before we started this, I looked up just in the NIV, how many times the word wives was mentioned in the Bible. I thought, what a great study. It's in there 105 times. So that might be a great study for someone who was really wanting to know what God is saying to them about
being a wife. Yeah. Interesting.
Studies like that are fun.
No, I agree. Thank you, Snuggles, for the super chat. I see. Okay, so what are the instructions that you have to adhere to such? Your husband demands that. What does he compromise with you that you do that is okay with? I'm trying to understand the question. So are you saying? I'm assuming this is going to be in relation to submission. So are you saying how is it that? I'm trying to understand the question. What are the instructions that you have to adhere to? Or maybe I don't understand the question. I'm thinking you're saying how it's going back to submission. Are there specific instructions or rules that you have to adhere to? Is that what submission looks like? Or like, what is that actually? Okay. What is the function of submission? That's what I think the question is.
I think what she's saying is, when do you put a boundary up?
Okay.
I hope.
Something like that. We're gonna try to figure this out.
Okay. So, if he wants you to do something that is completely against what you know is true, again, if you have the Holy Spirit, it will really help you know when you say, let's think on that, let's pray on that, let's have some time.
So I'm assuming something drastic, like he's like, "Hey, go kill that person."
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You're like, "Well, I can't do that." Like, right.
There are godly boundaries that God has set for us, but if he wanted you to do something that would hurt you in a physical way, or like, okay, let's say I'm sickly and he wants me to go out and get a job, but I know truthfully I can't go out and get a job because I'm not well enough. So not just to submit to anything, you have to be honest with yourself, and certainly honest with God, and you really have to listen to what he's saying he wants, because maybe there's something else you can do that would help him. But
so, and you're saying in that kind of situation, how would you handle it? Would you say, okay, can we talk this out more? Can we come to a compromise?
Right.
Okay.
Because a man who loves you isn't going to demand you do this. Now, he's not going to talk to you like that.
Yeah.
A man that respects his wife is going to say, honey, can you do this for me? And it's a question, real question. And then you can answer it in truth. But some things you're not called to do, and you know it.
Now, are there certain like times of submission where you don't want to do it, but you still do it?
Yes, there are some things that I do.
Okay.
Trying to think of something right now. It's different now. My husband's retired, and yeah, it's kind of smooth now.
After you said 25 years of working things out.
Yeah, so the next 15 were really good. It changed everything. Somebody told me once, first 25 is the first part of your marriage, second 25 is the second part of your marriage. And I kind of seemed like that for me.
Wow.
I don't even remember where I was going with that question.
No, we were just asking, like, okay, if you had a situation of where you have submitted or you do submit, although you personally don't want to do it, but you do it out of respect for him, out of respect for God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then usually what would happen in that case, my husband would probably end up saying, don't do that. I didn't know. Just, you're released. You're done.
Yeah, from doing that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually spoke with a friend of mine a few weeks ago who recently got married, and I think she's like 2 years in. I won't disclose her name, but you probably know her. Recently married, and we had a kind of conversation about how tough it was for modern women, women in my generation and youngers who were brought up to learn how to be independent and brought up to learn how to be thinkers for ourselves and take care of ourselves. And then you take that in a marriage, and all of a sudden you're supposed to submit. And it's like, and I remember her saying how difficult it was for her, because it's like, it's almost as if you're trained to do the total opposite.
Right.
You're trained almost to not submit. You're trained to question everything. You're trained to try to negotiate everything, where sometimes that's not necessarily needed. Sometimes it is that, this is the order that God has created, and you trust God by honoring it. And so I remember her and I, we were having a conversation about it, and she's like, man, like I feel like I was unprepared to do this. Wow. I'm learning how to do this, and it's really difficult because I didn't see it around me.
Right. And again, it's just dysfunction. And if that's all you know is that you're confident in yourself and I'm independent and I don't need anybody.
Right.
Going into a marriage like that, it's just going to be really hard because you submit to one another.
Yeah.
It's not always just submitting to the man. And that's really important.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the answer.
That makes sense.
We're called to submit to one another too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, there's going to be times, let's say childbirth. Obviously, your husband's not going to try to tell you how to give. He's going to submit to you and be like, you're the woman. You probably know how to have a baby better. You know what I mean?
Like, say if the husband said, you don't need an epidural. And you go, but I want an epidural. That kind of thing. That could happen. And yet, as a person who's going through it, you might need that epidural. And so I had 2 babies with epidurals and 2 without. And the 2 that I went with epidural, I had to. One was breech and the other one was in the wrong position. So they had to do that all back labor. But
that sounds fun.
40, how many years ago? Anyway, he was totally supportive of that. You know, men don't like to see their wives scream.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, so I see. Here's another question. Out of finances, communication, intimacy, and families, in-laws, which is more critical to a marriage from the both of your experiences? So you're saying, if you were to compare finances, communication, intimacy, families, or in-laws, like what aspect do you think is the most important to focus on, or what aspect do you think the most important to have a right?
Well, first, I'm going to talk from experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing is not to involve your parents or other people outside of your marriage. You should depend on one another for the financial stuff.
Yeah.
And only under due duress that you want to bring somebody else into your family who has something to do with your finances.
Right.
That seems to be really important. Early on, we decided that it needed to be between him and I.
That makes sense. No, that makes so much sense.
Because soon, you're talking about that's independence.
Mm-hmm.
You grow up and you're supposed to leave your parents and stuff like that. And if you want to be independent, you don't want to be taking anything outside of it and bringing it into it, because then they're going to have some influence over what your decisions are. Most people don't just lend money because you want to go on a vacation or something like that.
No, totally.
And so, that would, and talking about, how much you're going to give your kids and all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure you're on the same page with it. And that works really well.
Okay. So it sounds like you're talking about having strong boundaries, especially around the topic of finances. Yeah.
And even if you don't agree with each other, which happens often, not so much now, but I will submit to him most of the time. He's got incredible discernment. He really does. It makes me crazy. So I see things and he feels things. And so I've learned to really submit to that now, because he's proved that he was right so many times now. I'm kind of like, okay.
I can agree to be wrong on this.
Well, he's an engineer, so he sees all the little details. I see big picture. And so it's a great match. It's so many times we'll come together with it, though. He'll come how he comes and I'll come my way. And we're on the same page. We didn't know.
Right. No, that's awesome. No, that's awesome. I see. Thank you for the super chat. It says, thanks for addressing this topic of discussion and the great work you're doing to educate and bring us back to God's intent concerning marriage and relationships. Thank you for the $20 super chat, Kirk Simpson. I really appreciate it. If you were on here, please get the likes up, tag anybody on this discussion you think may find it interesting. And I've had a great time sitting down and hearing your wisdom and just your experience and just all the different things that you've had to share. Like, as I mentioned before, there's many young women and men out there right now who are desiring to find wives and desiring to find women that are compatible and having a hard time doing it, and vice versa. Women who don't even know the left from the right sometimes and are caught up in all kinds of stuff. So I think it's important to have conversations where different generations can come together and just say, let's talk about some of these common ideas. Is it true or is it false?
Yes. And one of the things that I was thinking about, like between you and I, when you met your husband, we made a decision, you and I, that I was going to pray for you.
You did.
Yeah, I did.
You did. Yeah.
Just about every day.
Yeah, and you did, and I needed it. And I've mentioned this in previous videos where I think a part of just my journey in general, I think it's incredibly important to have those people in your life that you can be accountable to. As a woman, it was important that I had you, that I had other people who counseled me and my husband. That was so important because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You really don't know what you don't know. And there is safety in community and there is safety in family. And it used to be that when people did get married and came together, they were coming from a family communitary standpoint.
Right.
And so a young girl wasn't making a decision on her own.
Right.
Now you have a lot of young women who were making decisions on their own without parental guidance, without a strong father influence or a strong godly mother influence, and so it causes it can cause all kind of chaos.
It can. I just want to talk to the older women out there. If you have young people in your life like Sade, make a commitment to yourself or to them that you will pray for them during the days that, well, they're just dating, or it's just something you do every day. As you pray for your own marriage, you pray for them, and it's really wonderful to watch what happens with them. It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna watch her videos from her marriage now, and I haven't seen them yet, so I'm really excited. I prayed all those years, now I get to see it.
Yeah. Yes. I'm seeing some good. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing some stuff come through. So, anyways, yeah, this was good. Like I said, in the interest of time, I just was focusing on the super chats because we could be here all day. But did you have any final words, any final advice, wisdom, or just thoughts that you would like to leave with people who are watching?
I guess, God first. Period. I mean, there's really not much more. Be in your word. Your word's going to tell you what to do when you don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you learn how to receive it and obey it, it's amazing. He'll give you the faith to obey when you need it. Mm-hmm. And so I guess that's it. Love one another.
Love one another. Yeah, that's actually important. Love one another. I hear a lot. Just side note, I hear a lot of the love yourself first kind of thing. That's really popular. Like putting yourself on the pedestal, loving yourself first, and making sure that you're in love with yourself before you. So it sounds like you don't agree with that. It sounds like you don't agree with putting yourself on a pedestal and being in love with yourself before you ever be in love with anyone else.
It's because we kind of live in fantasy. We see the wedding day, or they look forward to your whole life, your wedding day. But you're going to have much more time later on than this one wedding day. I mean, yeah, it's nice. It's wonderful getting together, and it's a wonderful celebration. But next week, you're going to be needing prayer all over again, because now you're trying to start a marriage relationship. And it's hard. It's really hard. It can be very fun, definitely. But no matter how good it is, it's always going to be hard.
Yeah.
But don't expect perfection.
Mm.
That's not what it's about.
Yeah.
I think God gives us the person that we need in order to get healthy with.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that two dysfunctional people would come together. And we used to use, a guy showed me this. I don't know if you can see on this picture. We used to be like iron, stabbing each other before letting the iron sharpen the iron with one another. And when we learned that, that was the way to operate, that helps so much. Because your husband's weak point, and you want to be nasty, you can go after his weak point.
You can use that against him if you want to.
Yeah. I'd say that's sin. Probably.
That's bad.
That's bad.
Using his weak points against you that's bad.
Yeah. So you do want to lift him up.
Yeah.
And he'll lift you up.
Yeah. Goes back to honor and respect.
Yes. Go back to the triangle, put God at the top, and then you two at the bottom.
Yeah.
It'll work.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for all of you guys who have joined this discussion. I want to thank you so much for sharing all of your advice and wisdom. There's definitely some jewels here. Seem to have some really thankful listeners who were just, glad that we could sit down and have an honest conversation, and dispel some of these myths, or at least, examine whether or not they're true or false. So
it's just so common for Sade and I just to be in this room talking. I think that really works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So anyways, thank you for all of you who have been on. Again, like I said, if you like this, if you think it was helpful, feel free to share it. Get the likes up, tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. And we will be back soon. Talk later. Bye.